Mutts fans, we have a very special guest joining us. This is his first time on the Two Mutts podcast. He's played 286 games in the NHL. He's racked up 544 penalty minutes. He has scored 11 points. And it's to say you played 286 games in the NHL is pretty special. He's a great guy, and he's also a NHL All Star. We'd like to welcome back to the Two Mutts podcast, John Scott. John, how's it going?
It's going good. It's nice that you do 286 games, but you don't mention that was over 9 years. So
Yeah.
it could have been like 1,000,
Yes,
but
exactly.
that's good.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. We really appreciate you joining in. So I guess how are things going? How's the family life and how's the podcast life too? Also, you have a podcast as well.
Yeah, everything's going great. We just had our seventh daughter 5 months ago. So that was exciting. Kids are loving it. They're liking a little sister to take care of, and the podcast is going good. Nothing can't complain, Joshua. It's going great.
That's good. That's good. All right, this is where I turn it over to Clay Vanderham. He kind of does the minor hockey kind of where
Yeah, I,
for it. Go ahead, Vandy.
yeah, John, I coach and I've been coaching for 20 some years, and I like to find out where our guests come from, where you played minor hockey, coaches, players that you may have played with, and that kind of inspired you to take that next step every year, right? So where it says you grew up in Edmonton, but I don't know if you played hockey, minor hockey in Edmonton, or if you
No,
want.
we moved east in 1987 or 88. That big tornado came through
Yep.
and tore up our trailer park. So we moved east and moved in with my dad's
Oh, you were in
mom,
Evergreen.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So we had to move east, and we moved in with my dad's mom for a couple years. And that's where I really started to get into the minor hockey in St. Catharines, Ontario. So I played there, gosh, up until I left to go to the North American Hockey League when I was 17. But I played, yeah, junior C, junior B, midgets, my minor hockeys in St. Catharines. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the interesting facts that and why we were excited to get you on was just your path to the NHL and almost a no quit FU attitude. If I'm speaking out of line, but that no quit, because every year you're just kind of staking your claim, and just kind of talk about how getting to that next step every year.
Yeah, there was a point where it was after my Pee Wee year where I just, like you said, I wasn't going to make the team. I don't think a new coach came in for the Bantams, and that was everyone's big draft year. And I just said enough is enough, and I just went and played like high school hockey and house hockey for 2 years. So I just took myself out of the situation just because I stopped having fun. This is not going to work out. So my minor and major bantam years, I just left, and everybody's getting drafted and going on to the OHL and this and that. And I was just kind of sitting in high school playing high school hockey. Then I jumped back into it in midget because I kept growing. I was 6'3", 6'4", and then I had a big spurt up to 6'7", and I was still decent hockey. And finally the midget coach said, "Hey, you need to come back and play. I think we can make something work here." So I went back and I played midget, and I got the opportunity after that to go play junior C in Grimsby for the Peach Kings. And then I got the opportunity after that to play junior B in Thorold for the Thorold Blackhawks, played with Nate Horton. We had a great team, almost won the Sutherland Cup finals. We had like a fantastic team. Then I figured I was just going to go to Brock University, have Thorold pay for my university. I think I was a senior in high school at that point. But I got a call from Chicago in the North American League. The assistant coach in Chicago, his brother happened to be associated with the Blackhawks, randomly called me up. I went to camp, not expecting anything, didn't know anything about hockey in the United States at all. Made that team. And I was like, screw it, I'll go. Like I was a 17-year-old kid, whatever. Let's go and have fun. I made that team, got a scholarship to go to Michigan Tech, like a partial scholarship, and just slowly, like you said, just chinking my way up the ladder there. I went from, house league to midget to junior C to junior B to junior A to college in 6 consecutive years. And then I got to university, and I kind of just worked on my game for 4 years and was lucky enough to have a few coaches who saw something in me because I was still raw. I was 6'9" by that point almost, and I was 210 pounds. I was like a beanpole, had a little bit of a mean streak, but just very raw. And the good thing about college is you have a lot of practice time. So I just kind of worked on my game, went to school. I thought, honest to God, I thought I was just going to get a degree, play 4 years, and just go on my way. I think I was on a 35% scholarship, so my parents were still picking up a sizable chunk. And that was it. And then I just kept playing and getting better. And then, yeah, AHL, NHL, and then here we are. So yeah, it just kind of worked out. It's funny.
Were you, so you played forward, right? Or
Well,
was there a time when you
I
would
was
transition
defense
back
my
and forth?
whole I was
Okay.
defense my whole minor league growing up, college, only defense. First start of my pro career, defense. The reason I switched to forward was I was with the Blackhawks and our forwards kept getting injured and I kept getting into fights. And so they're like, we're just going to put you up front because you're getting in the box too much. And so I started playing forward when I was with the Blackhawks. And that whole season, I would play forward defense every game. Q would throw me on forward for 3 shifts, defense for 5 shifts. You know, I'd play a couple of games forward, 7 games defense. I was bouncing all over the place because of all the injuries we had.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so you go 4 years at Michigan Tech. Is the NHL even, are you even thinking about it? Or is it, I'm just going to get my degree in mechanical engineering, right?
Mechanical. Yeah, no, not even on the table because no one,
Yeah.
But at that time, you got to remember, like, it's not like it is now where you got Owen Power, you got like first round draft picks coming out of college left and right. When I was there, we had Ryan Miller and then Johnny Taves came out of North Dakota. But other than that, there wasn't much talent coming out of the NCAA. So I just went there. I went to it. Michigan Tech is a great academic school, one of the best schools in the country. Hockey wise, we sucked. We were brutal. Like we won average of 6 or 7 games a year. We were bad. So I no, freshman year, junior year, sophomore year, I didn't have any sniffs from anybody. But then, like I said, I kept growing and kept kind of getting better every single year because we were playing against good competition, but we were just getting ripped. But
were there any minor hockey coaches that kind of helped you along the way? You know, when you got to that midget program, junior B, junior C, and you're just, you know, obviously you're growing. I would not know anything about that, but I've coached kids where they go through a growth spurt and it kind of the awkwardness and all that. I mean, that it's tough for me to teach that, to coach that, and to work with it. We just tell them to be patient, that kind of thing. But yeah, were there any?
It was junior C and junior B, those 2 years. Dave Brownridge for the Grimsby Peach Kings, he was great. I was a young kid. I think I was 16 or 16. I was playing with 20-year-olds. And I don't know if you guys know about the junior C in Ontario. It was just like the jungle where it was just like you fight every single night. And then you see the guys at the hospital and you're just hanging. Like it was wild. So he took me under his wing and he just really, because I was scared. It was intimidating going in there, and he just kind of worked with me every single day. And I hadn't really been used to working out, skating every single day, doing that sort of all hockey all the time thing. I'd been playing minor leagues, you know, house leagues. He was great. And then when I jumped to junior B, that's when I really took a turn because I got to play with Nathan Horton. I got to play with really good junior players, Jadis Halen, Taylor Cummings, all these guys who you probably don't know about, but they were very good at that time. And the coach was Timmins. What was his first name? His first name's blanking, but he really kind of didn't coddle me at all. I was a rookie coming in. He's like, you got to be our best defenseman. Basically, he's like, you have the skills. We need you to be better because we had some high-end veteran defensemen, but I was 17.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to be our guy. And I was like, he challenged me. And I was like, all right, let's go for it. And then we had this great run. All this stuff, we just fell short in the championship game, but those 2 coaches really kind of pushed me to kind of focus on hockey a little more than I had been, because you know, when you're a kid, when you're not good and you see all these other guys who are good, like the stars on the team, because I've always been a 4th, 5th defenseman, you know what I mean? So you see all these other people getting the goals, getting the accolades, you just kind of get comfortable. But when it's your turn,
right?
When it's your turn to kind of get that pressure, it was nice to feel that for once. Be like, we need you to be the guy.
What?
Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because I had never experienced that before. So it was those 2 guys pushed me to be better.
Perfect. Rab, we'll fire it off to you there, bud.
John, I mean, I'm a Hawks fan. I'm not going to lie. I'm not
Don't
ashamed
lie,
about it.
Rev. Don't.
No, I can't. It's not in me. Talk to me about playing with the team that you played with. They came off the cup. I think you were squeezed right in between the two cups.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm not.
Very
I mean,
much.
listen, you put them on the path to the 2013 Cup. I'm just going to say that. We'll leave it at that. But like, talk to me about that team. That team had such an incredible core of leaders. JT being the quiet leader. Patty Kane being the example on the ice. I don't have the insight in the dressing room. Who was the vocal leader on that team? It was a dynasty. Who
it was absolutely. And it's funny how it works. Johnny, like you said, he's just a quiet guy who you follow him into battle wherever he goes. You trust whatever he does. Kaner didn't really talk too much unless he got really upset. Then you heard him. The guys in the locker room, it was the Brian Campbells. Mm-hmm. It was Nick Boynton was a loud voice. The Dave Boland was a guy who talked quite a bit. Yeah. Those were the guys who kept it lively. Myself, I enjoyed to talk a little bit, but from the higher up stars, Sharpie, chimed in a little bit. There wasn't like one guy, like when I was in San Jose, Jumbo talked.
Yeah.
It was Jumbo's room.
Yeah.
In Chicago, there were so many guys. Like you had a Haas, you had all of these guys who were Hall of Famers, and everybody just did it. There was not one voice. And I know it's so cliche, but when you look around the room and you have a Chalmerson, a Seabrook, a Keith, a Hossa, a Sharp, a Taves, a Kane, a Soupy Campbell, a Boland, it's murderer's row, man.
Well, then you have Coach Q.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much he's getting paid to
babysit.
That are really and was it a self-led team? Like how much did Q have?
Q was good with holding people accountable when they needed to be held accountable. I always tell this story because it shines a positive light on me, but we were in St. Louis. St. Louis is a physical team. They would grind you out back when they had Backus and Jansen and all these guys. They pounded you through the ice. We were playing in St. Louis and the top guys weren't going. Sharpie wasn't going. Kaner wasn't going. They were having a tough night. Q put me on the first line for a period and a half and sat those two guys on the bench. And I got to play first line minutes with Haas, Taves, those guys. And that was awesome because he saw I was working my tail off. I think it'd been a fight earlier that game and he just gave me that opportunity. So he was the type of guy who he would let you go. He'd let you play.
Yeah.
But as soon as you didn't hold that standard of work ethic and stuff, because he's a hard coach to play for. He would come in screaming and yelling and he would, get in your face if you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. But the beautiful thing about Chicago is those guys, they didn't need that. Most of the times, if we were starting to slack, Taser would jump on us, Dunks would jump on us, and they would be yelling at you on the bench. Like, what are you doing? That was a bad shift. So Q just really had to read the room with, you guys are getting too stressed out. Maybe we need to take a day off, or you guys are getting too complacent and I'm going to crack the whip a little bit. So he just had to gauge the room, which it's just hard sometimes, but it was an easier room to deal with just because, like you said, we kind of just ran ourselves.
Right. And I mean, I actually enjoy having you on here because for the first time on this podcast, we get to do a little hawk talk. They won't talk about hawk in the podcast. So let me ask you this.
So we should.
Listen, as a kid, I was at Chicago Stadium, and as an adult, United Center. My dad and I were there 2010 game 2 against Philly in a box for the Stanley Cup Finals, which was awesome. But I can't imagine the energy that you gain on the ice when you're standing there during that national anthem wearing the home sweater. Talk to me about that energy that you feel.
It gives you goosebumps when you're on the ice and Jim Corneliuson starts belting out the national anthem. If you haven't, I don't know if he still does it anymore.
Yes.
But
he does.
Oh yeah, he sure does.
It's the most incredible opening to a game ever in all sports. Sports.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting there, the fans are rocking, and Chicago is a special place. So there's a few rinks that it's like this when they get really pumping, where it's just like an avalanche. Winnipeg's like it, Chicago's like it, San Jose when they get going, that's a loud barn. There's Vegas. I never got to play in Vegas, never did. They came in the year after I retired, but if you get one in Chicago and the crowd's going, you're going to get 2 or 3. It's an avalanche. I don't know how to explain it, but you just get on your heels. and it's just impossible. Like if you play in New York and Toronto, it's quiet. It's not loud. The fans aren't rowdy, but man, those Hawks fans, they are just, it's a different breed there.
Does it ever get old?
No, never, which is a beautiful thing because
Yeah.
they're so passionate. I still go to Chicago to this day. I did not win a cup. I can get a dinner bought. I'd say 25% of the time I go out. They go, hey, let me pick your dinner up.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything there. So they're
No,
just
you
a great
did.
fan.
I mean, here's the deal, John. Is those who know you have a cult following. You are a legend to those who love John Scott. And I mean, I just have two things I want to ask you. One, what do you think was going through Phil Kessel's mind on the day that turn on you on the face-off? And I just rewatched it because Bosco brought this to my memory. I rewatched it, and I just, as soon as Phil turned around and he saw, dude, he had to look up at you. And you wanted to swing, and he just wanted to stick you. Talk to me about what did you see in him?
Well, there was a whole precursor I don't want to get into. Phil was just the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Right? Because I told that coach, it was Carlisle, before the face-off. I said, whoever you put out,
yeah,
we exchanged more words. I was like, I'm going to beat their doors off. And he gave me this smirk, and I see Phil skating towards me. So I'm like, okay. I go over to my centerman. I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
Like,
you might have ended that Ironman streak.
Yeah. And so I touched on my forward. I touched my defenseman. I said, heads up, I'm going to jump Phil here. Like, just get ready. So Phil puts his stick down. I look over, and I like Phil Kessel.
Yeah.
He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I know I say that a lot, but he will be a Hall of Famer. He's a tremendous player.
Yeah.
And I said, Phil, I'm sorry. I have to jump you.
Yeah.
And I think,
and what did he say? What did he say? What did he answer to that?
I think he glitched, and he goes, what? and then the puck dropped, and I'm like, I'm shedded my gloves, and he just started hacking. I don't blame him for what he did. I would do the same thing. I'd be hacking the guy's face.
Yeah.
No, not a chance, man. Now, I want to say what most people know you for is this whole All-Star game. Talk to me. You just go to Montreal. They're about to send you down to St. John's, and then all of a sudden, this fan vote. Are you watching? Do you get to see this fan vote come in? And like, what are they like?
Yeah, that started before the trade. I was already locked into first place when I was in Arizona. We were following because I was talking to Bettman.
Yeah,
I was talking to the NHL for weeks. My GM, they were trying to convince me not to go. They were doing everything they could to kind of just persuade me to bow out. And I was like, screw that. Like, I'm going.
You had some advocates too. I think Patty Kane was advocating for you.
Most people were, but they were
everybody
worried.
Yeah.
It was the first year for the 3-on-3, and I get it. It's a skill game. It's fast. It's quick. It's like they're trying to showcase the skill. And here comes John. I got, how many goals to my resume at that time? I think 5. So I get it. I totally get it. And I'm a faithful Catholic. We kind of leaned into our faith a little bit. And my wife said, they don't want good things for you. That they want what's bad for you, and just kind of follow the positivity. And everybody was just encouraging me to go. And, then I got traded. Then I got sent down right away. Didn't even get to go to Montreal. It was like a 20-minute span where it's like, oh, you got traded to Montreal. And I just kind of digested it. And I was like, okay, this could be okay. And then the GM walks back, Don Maloney. He literally, it was funny how it went. He pulls me in the stick room. I had just gotten my gloves for the All-Star game. So we were pretty far along in the process. I was trying them on. I was showing them to my, the guys on the Yotes, like Donor and, Steve Downey. Pulls me in the stick room. And he's like, hey, I just traded you to Montreal. My first, literally my first words were, I'm not going to swear on the show, but I was like, what the blank? What the blank are you talking about? And he's like, it was a deal that had to be done. And I go, we're in second place in the Pacific. We're supposed to be in dead last. Our payroll is almost scratching the floor.
Yeah.
Why does this have to be done? And I didn't say all this, but I just said, why? Like, well, who did you trade for me? He got Jared Tenorti.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jared Tenorti is not nearly as tough as me. And he's in the minors. What's going on here? And so I said, all right, whatever. I'm going to Montreal. That'll be great. Original 6, that'll be fun. Go and say goodbye to the guys. They just got dealt. Everybody's kind of shocked. calls me in the stick room again 20 minutes later. He's actually, they want you to go to St. John's, Newfoundland. Again, what the F are you talking about?
Yeah.
And by this time, I'm so emotional. I am a, emotional guy. I'm like ready to rip his face off or cry. I was like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so that's how that went down.
Yeah.
All-Star game, you made it, go down to the minor leagues. It was bizarre.
MVP too, though.
Well, after the fact, I had to go through, like, they put me through the gauntlet of just, can he go? Should he go? Will he go? Is he allowed to go? Can he go from the AHL? Ended up going, shoved it up their behind.
Yeah.
MVP, it was great, and never played. Well, I played one more game in the show after that.
Yeah. Speak to the environment that you had, obviously going to the All-Star game with your family, though. Like, I was just talking to someone in the NHL world on the Calgary Flames, and their family is hoping that one of their husband, so the kids can kind of get that feel. But kind of talk about the experience that your kids kind of got to see of being around that. If the kids went, I'm pretty sure your family did go. I think
they did. My wife was 9 3/4 months pregnant with our twins, so we had two at that point, and she was there at the All-Star game. And we had it's funny, we had a doctor on call, cell phone on the bench, and I was checking it between periods because she was literally. The doctors here in Traverse City where we live were saying, you can't fly. Like, you're ready to burst. You're having twins. You're massive. You shouldn't do this. But she came, we had everything prepared. But yeah, it was a special game. It really was, because my kids were old enough to kind of understand what's happening, but it kind of tainted them, because now they expect that every time, like, oh, you're going to play hockey? You're going to bring home a trophy, or are you going to win a car? Yeah. What's going on? Are you bringing home a big check? Like, no, I'm just going to go play with some guys and drink beer. You guys, it's just not the same anymore. So that's what made it special, just because you get to kind of live your stuff through their eyes and see how excited they are. And I get to go back sometime, and I don't do it a lot, but around the All-Star time, like it is right now, they'll show videos and they'll show my wife crying and my kids, and it's special. Right, it's kind of neat that they got to see that, because that was my pinnacle.
Yeah.
I'm happy you got to experience that, for sure. Yeah. It's always a good story when you bring you on, or you hear you on other podcasts or whatnot, when it is around this time. Even the other day, you tweeted out to Jeff Merrick, here we go again. So.
Well, it's just, what are they doing bringing this back? It's come on, you guys. Just let it be.
Yeah, exactly. And to finish up on that before we move into other things, how special was that, where the players put you on their shoulders and kind of got that moment? And we always talk about the players shining the light on each other, and that's kind of what our theme here is on our podcast. But that moment for you and your family, again, once in a lifetime probably experience, but how great it was to have that, and the great group of players that are in the NHL for that too, right?
It was, that Pacific team I was on, it was just a good group of guys. And luckily I had some good friends on the team, and Joe Pavelski and Brent Burns. Yeah. So they just took a lot of pressure off me. They were on my line.
Yeah.
And Burnsy literally said, just put your stick on the ice and I'll find you. And first shift, he found me, and I had an empty net. Missed a net, by the way, but it hit Rene's pad and went in. It was a terrible shot. But, it just shows the selflessness of players, where they could have been pissed, this is an All-Star game. It's skill. And now here comes this big goof, and we have to, just pretend this is okay or this is normal, but they didn't. Taylor Hall, Drew Doughty, Jonathan Quick, Sedin, I don't know if it was Henrik or Daniel.
Yeah.
But all of these guys, John Gibson, they just, they didn't make a big deal out of it in the room. It was just normal. And B, they were just so cool with it on the ice, even though I'm getting voted in for the MVP, which who knows if I were, merited that, but it was really neat. It was really cool. They even Quickie was like, you can have all the money, take all the winnings, because they're all making $7 to $10 million. I'm making league minimum, and there's a big difference there, but I didn't accept it. But it's just, they're cool guys, And I think hockey players are different. They just don't want that accolades. They're super happy to let the guy beside them have that spotlight. Yeah. They let me have it for that day.
Yeah. Connor Bedard last night, his comments, right? That's just, and that's a 17-year-old kid, but
I always look at LeBron in basketball. I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Doing it wrong, man. So I just think hockey players are different. They really are.
We are.
We'll shift gears to the NHL.
We are.
Yeah.
We're all hockey
Play.
players.
Yeah, we're all just
Beer League All Stars.
yeah, exactly. Division 11 ball hockey champion. So
Hey, championship is a championship.
100% a ship is a ship, right? So I know there's one thing before I want to get you out. We got a couple minutes here, but I want to get to the NHL stuff. But Vandy was talking about some of the great coaches that you've had in your career. I want to throw it back to him to kind of touch on that before we
Yep.
get to NHL stuff. So
Yeah, I was looking through your DB and all that and then what struck me was, okay, first of all, you're not supposed to make the NHL, right, as a player. And then to prolong and play, just under 300 games in the show is incredible. And then I started looking at your coaching, the coaches that you had and how much of an impact they had on maybe bringing you into a team or you've got the likes of Joe Q, Lemaire, Tippett, Ruff, Torts, Ted Nolan, and then in AHL, you've got a local
Kevin Constantine,
legend here and Rob Dahm as well.
Mhm.
So, but yes, I mean, just talk to that. And
I was lucky. And my first coach in the show, Jacques Lemaire, again, I say that a lot. He is a Hall of Famer. He's won a million Stanley Cups as a player and a coach, and he made the game so incredibly simple. There's some coaches that let the players have their skill and go out and be creative and just the ice is your canvas and I want you to paint me a beautiful picture. No, Jacques was like, this is my ice rink and I will tell you where to go. It was like bubble hockey. It's like, you go here, and I will orchestrate you. You're my puppets. And it was fantastic. As a young guy coming in, nervous, maybe not, the skills weren't there. He said, you got one job, get the puck out of your zone and get off the ice. And I was like, perfect. I can do that. And it was the era of high and hard. I had Keith Carney. He goes, just get the puck, dink, dink, off the glass and out if you're in trouble, if the pass isn't there. It was a different way to play. Stick your stick between his legs and hand open him. I was very effective. It was my first year. He made it super easy where I just came in, did my job, played 12 to 15 minutes, and that was it. He was just a very easy coach to play for. And it was so incredibly just relaxing because you knew when you were, in the wrong and you knew when you were in the right because he wouldn't say anything to you. He would just leave you alone. In the intermissions, you'd smell the smoke coming from the room. He would light up a cigarette. Somebody would have a cigar and you'd see it billowing over their office doors into the locker room. And it's like, okay, I can do this. You know what I mean? And he just made it really easy. And Q's kind of a throwback to that. But then you have the masterminds of the other coaches like you spoke to. And there's, a lot of just really veteran, experienced coaches who I was lucky enough to play for who really valued hard work over individual skill. And I think that helped me a lot because I think you guys know I'm not a very skilled guy. I try to work my tail off and see where it gets me. But
you got farther than we did.
What's that?
You got further than we did.
Well, you guys in hockey, maybe not in life. There's more to life than hockey. You guys are doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll shift gears to the Edmonton Oilers here and some NHL talk. I know you, as we were just saying, you kind of took some heat, and we get murdered sometimes for this comments too. So, but we're here in Edmonton. Kind of, what's your thoughts of the Oilers season? And I agree to your point of the comment. If going into a playoffs, I don't know if Connor's my top 5, but you're kind of what do you think with this Oilers team? They're so up and down right now throughout the year, but your overall thoughts of what you have seen so far?
Well, I think the big issue is Jack, right? Like you put all your eggs in that basket and it hasn't worked out. But to that same point, it's the same questions every year in the offseason for the Oilers. It's the same needs and they don't fill those needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need some depth and we need some better defensemen. They don't do it. So it's a lost year so far in my eyes. Kaner went down. He was a huge part of this team. And now they're lost. They have no leadership. It just goes to show you how much Duncan Keith shielded Evan Bouchard last year.
Yeah.
Because Bouchard looks out of sorts. He's a different defenseman this year. They are not, in my eyes right now, a playoff team without Evander Kane. So and that's terrible when you're capped out, you guys. Like there's nowhere to go. When you look at the roster, when you look at the cap space, when you look at everything, the contracts moving forward, there's nowhere to go. Your goalies are locked in for 3 years. Your high-end guys are locked in for 4, 5, 6 years. So this is your team.
Yeah.
So, and McDavid ain't the guy. He'll score you 180 points.
But
there will be no rings on his fingers unless things change. So
yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah, I would agree, John. It's tough to kind of watch. Like we kind of sit here and chatting with some players and having guys on, and we just had Jason Chimera on, and you played against him throughout your career, and he talked.
Yep.
He's like, how do you have? And he's a guy that was a bottom six guy. He's like, how do you define your role when you're only playing 5 to 6 to maybe 7 minutes a night? How do you get into the rhythm of things? And it's overload with these guys. And so it's interesting to see and it was weird because when Woodcroft came in last year, he really did take the minutes down and everything got equaled out. And I don't know if it was a slight against Dave Tippett. It's just, maybe new coach, new voice kind of thing. But the depth is an issue for sure. And before we had even the season started, Rev had an interview with Bob Stauffer, and he bet Bob Stauffer a steak dinner that Stuart Skinner, before the season started, that Skinner would be the starting goaltender for the Oilers.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Rev was forced.
I fucking forgot about that you called
Hey,
that.
listen, boys, don't sleep on the Rev.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought Campbell was going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to come in, but it just
And
he hasn't been.
Yeah, and I'm a Leaf fan, so for me, it's like I saw a little bit of it, but it was just like talking to like the insiders when we've had them on and whatnot. They said that there was very like this is the reason why they didn't re-sign him in Toronto is because they saw something that this was going to happen, and I don't know if that's kind of what Rev saw too. Like I know the biggest thing, like even my Commodore who was on with us, he played with Campbell too, and he said this guy's always been super hard on himself, and it's like Mike Commodore talked about, it's like there's the Me Too kind of movement, but it was like that I'm feeling sorry for myself movement that just happened. And then Mike Fuda also said that too when he came on with us, and he had Jack Campbell there. So I don't know, like we'll see what Skinner does. He's been pretty good, but last game he got lit up, and Campbell played the other night there, so we'll see where things transition there. But we move over to the Calgary Flames, and a big guy in Milan Lucic, a good friend of ours too, but he got healthy scratch. He's kind of a little bit better too, but they've been up and down too, John. Kind of what have you saw in the Calgary Flames recent play and throughout the year? Kind of somewhat similar in a way.
Yeah, theirs is a little bit more strange with their goal scoring. I think, well, the obvious one is Huberdeau he's not Johnny Gaudreau. Right. No. So he's just, they're not scoring. Their shooting percentage is garbage, and Markstrom's not playing like he has been. And they're a strange team because you look at their lineup, they have depth.
Yeah.
Their defense are great. Their goaltenders should be good. So I just don't know. I'm starting to think it's almost the John Tortorella effect, but it's like, are they over Daryl Sutter? They're just kind of sick of his messaging. They just want a fresh voice in the locker room. That's what I kind of gather, where they just need something else, because the Oilers should be where they're at, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is a slight against the Oilers. Their defense is not good.
Correct. Yeah.
And Calgary should be better. They have a great defense. They have really deep forwards, not as high end as last year. Tkachuk and Gaudreau are superstars.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in Huberdeau helps getting Kadri. They're not the same level, but they got pieces, you guys. They should be better.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What I know, Vandy, like, and we talk about Darnell Nurse, kind of go back to him a bit, but in that conversation, but what do you see from Darnell Nurse? Like, I honestly think his agent cap did the great thing, got the most amount of money that you can. There's the run on defenseman was high. I don't think I don't know if he's a top 62 defenseman in the NHL, but for a guy that's making 9.25 for the next 7 years, you need a lot more out of him on the back end. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Well, when you look at players who make $9.25 million as a defenseman, who would you rather have? Him, Fox, Yossi, Makar, those guys. So Dougie Hamilton. So when you're being compared to the creme de la creme, that's your comparison group, and you're at the bottom of that list, my friend.
Yeah,
and you got to bring more to the table. He's a great defenseman. He's a great defenseman who should be making $6 million.
Yeah. And
making 9.25.
There's not really one blasphemous mistake that he's making. It's just all of these little ones throughout games.
Yeah.
You know, that it really expose the goaltending. And
He should be a 3-4 guy, I think, on a very good team. He's a 3-4. He could be a 2, but he had a great year last year. He scored 1,000,000 goals and he had a ton of points. It was out of character for him, but it's just, again, Duncan Keith.
Yeah.
People undersold him maybe too much because he really did a lot last year.
In this market, they were down Ken Holland's throat. There was the contract. Why didn't you eat money? Why'd you give up another pick?
Yeah.
Like it's and you obviously your teammates with him, you know what that guy brings on a night in, night out basis. And I think they're missing him dearly. I don't know. Who knows how that was, why he's not back. People want to talk that maybe just because he felt like maybe his legs weren't there before, or I don't know. They were really capped out. So maybe it was kind of a, maybe like a Mike Smith situation where it was a forced, this is where you're going, or that Lou Lamoriello Islands type of thing where it happens with the game sometimes. But I don't think Duncan Keith would have got that kind of treatment, but maybe it definitely was the way his terms wanted to end. But man, they're missing a guy like him badly. And I know, and now they're going to have to pay a lot to bring on someone like that, it's that's it. And one of the names we brought up here on our podcast was Matthias Ekholm. I don't know what your thoughts of Ekholm as a defenseman is. Kind of being, if he was something you would bring on. He's got 3 years left on his deal in Nashville, but where the situation with the Preds too is where they're at. But a quick one on Ekholm before we sign off here.
Well, he'd be great. You need a calming kind of figure on that back. Coming like an Adam Larson in Seattle. He would be perfect if they could get their hands on him somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, they traded him away, didn't they? Or they didn't even offer him a contract. Isn't that too bad?
No, he's on a 7-game point streak right now.
Yeah. Someone like him who is just, you can plug him in 24 minutes, boom, don't have to worry about him. That would be fantastic. Yeah. But no, we put out Cody Ceci and Bouchard and all these guys, and it's just a crapshoot every single night in Edmonton on the back end. So yeah, but they should make a move. But how do you make a move if you're Edmonton? Yeah. How do you do anything?
Yeah.
No one's going to take anybody off no one's going to take CC or Kulak or Barry or any of these guys. No one's going to take them.
Listen, John, I don't know how long you've been out of this market, but we will trade away nobody and expect everybody to trade us somebody.
Yeah. So you got to get rid of the top guys. You got to I said you should have traded Nuge a long time ago. He's a great player. He's a very good asset. Get rid of him. Yamamoto, Poviari, those guys aren't working in the top 6.
No.
If you're riding shotgun with McDavid, you should be getting tons of points, and those guys aren't getting anything.
Yeah.
So
that's something that's always been here too. It's like, you look at, like you say, 180 points and McDavid's only a +6. Like, I don't know if people, how much they read into the plus minus stat. For some reason, I like it a lot, but that's me. But it's caved in every night. He gets his cookies and that's it. And
so when does he start getting held accountable? Because in my thought process is he gets a lot of leeway. But then you look at Matthews and Marner, and they just get crucified by the media because they're not producing, but they're losing to Tampa Bay every year.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Edmonton's not. When do they start getting a little bit of criticism outside of Edmonton in the hockey world? Because they're just as guilty as those two guys.
Yeah. I think here at this market, I don't know, like Vandy and Rev can attest to this in a way too, but I don't know the media is as hard on 97 and 29. I think they kind of get that free pass because how much points they put up. There might be the odd guy that kind of calls it out, but that's the thing that kind of somewhat, in some group chats that we're in with some other fans, it gets pretty hot and bother. Like you get really, like I had one a couple years ago. Remember my brother and I were fighting. We ended up going through a wall because it's just like it gets so hot and your attention, your anger gets there. But I look at it, I'm like, man, they should be.
It's frustration, Bosco.
Yeah,
is what it is.
It is. Yeah,
same thing.
And I think a lot of the media will keep quiet on, especially McDavid, because they're so knowing the product that they put on the ice. They don't want to give him any fuel to leave.
No.
So it's like he's being coddled.
That's a great point.
That is a good point.
It just is. I mean, it is. You won't even you won't hear anyway. I mean, TSN 1260 here. It's our local sports station. Buddy, McDavid is on a pedestal, and don't get me wrong, best player in the world, a generational player, really. but we don't want to give him the fuel to say, you know what, forget this, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way I see it.
One of the things I heard yesterday too, before we sign off, and you played this role really well, John, but I don't think they have anyone in that room besides Kane. But Kane hasn't fought since 2020, so that was obviously quite a few years ago too. But I think there are a lot of nice guys in that locker room, which is not a bad thing to have. It's easy for the media to deal with that, and in general, most hockey players are really nice. But who's in that locker room and that probably was Kane, but it's going to put people, hey, you got to get better, you got to get better, you got to get better. And last year they had the least amount of fights in the NHL. They're on trend again for doing that again this year. I still think there's room for toughness in the game. I think you need some kind of accountability, and that will transition over the playoffs, in my opinion. Like, I know there's probably not a lot of fights in the playoffs, but that Stanley Cup final we just witnessed, Colorado, Tampa, there was no passengers. Every single guy was going 110 to win. But your thoughts on kind of the makeup of the toughness, the lack of toughness on this team, and plus in the NHL too.
Well, there's no one who strikes fear at all.
Yeah.
So you come into Edmonton, you're like, this is an easy game.
Mhm.
And when I played, Edmonton was very hard to play against. Big Mac was there. I knew when I go to Edmonton, like, I got to keep my head up, and I'm going to get murdered because Mac was the real deal.
Yeah.
We used to feel this way towards Detroit in my day. You go into Detroit, you wouldn't have to pack any toughness because it was just going to be a cakewalk. And you knew if you grinded them out for the first period, you were getting an easy win. And that's how the Oilers are. They have nobody at all who's going to give any kind of pushback. And then, like you said, in the locker room, they lose to Seattle 5-1, and they just say the same talking points. It's like, oh, we gotta play better, more smart, more. I want someone to go in that room and start F-bombing everybody and telling them it's not good enough. And nobody's doing it. So it's a country club there, I think, and they don't have any jam in their game.
My wife and I were just down in Kananaskis, and it was when Minnesota was playing Calgary, and the Wild were the Nordic Spa. We were there that day, and I look over and I, see Fleury. I'm like, oh gosh, there's Fleury, and then all of a sudden you see everybody. Well, Matt Dumba passes me by the cold pool, and then behind him is Reeves, and out of uniform, that dude still struck fear in me. I've got no beef with him, but
imagine on the ice.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't want to.
And then if you have a guy on your team who can just make the other team second guess for a second, take an extra step, maybe not go into that corner just as fast, it is a huge thing. In Minnesota, they got him, they got Jacob Middleton, they got Ryan Hartman, they got guys who can just get after it. And that's why last year, Jacob Trouba, everybody was all over him because he was just killing guys. He was taking chances. He was like a freight train. I'm like, this is fantastic. He's so effective. He doesn't put up any points. He's making $8 million. Everybody on that ice knows where Jacob Trouba is. Everybody on the other team, as soon as they get on the ice, what do they check? Is Trouba out here? Okay. Oilers don't have that.
No.
They don't have anybody who hits. Who's the big hitter on that team?
Yeah, I don't. It was probably Kane, and he's out of lineup, right? So
Nurse maybe, but they're not huge. It's in the corner, rubbing a little bit.
Rub off.
Yeah. So the final one, we always like to do this before we sign off. I know we went a bit late, but throughout your career and after your career's done, what kind of charity do you and your family, what's near and dear to your guys' heart, and why is that charity of choice for you guys?
Well, like I said, we, it's a hot button topic nowadays, but me and my wife, we got 7 kids. We're pro-life, and we kind of hump that thing pretty hard. So any money I give it to my church, I give it to that charity, and I just try to push, every life is valuable. And we there's other options out there, be it abortion or not abortion, be it adoption or something like that. So I don't know, people get upset at it, and there's a lot of debates, but that's kind of what I push now.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, we'll connect on that for sure. And thank you again for joining us on our podcast. It was a huge honor. I don't know if Andy and
no, congrats on a great career, and all the best. Take care of those 7 little kidlings.
I will.
And the wife, and congrats, and thank you again for hopping on with us.
No, thanks, guys. This was fantastic.
John, you always have a fan in me, man.
Oh, Rev, thank you.
The
feelings mutual.
Hawks.
Yes.
All right,
guys, appreciate it.
Take care.
See you, John. Take care, pal.